First of all, the landscape of dealers in the US is very different from the landscape of dealers, for example, here in Dubai or even in Denmark. Number one, the scale is completely different, right? Working in a market like the US, the risks as well as the opportunity cost is much higher than if you would be here in Dubai or even Abu Dhabi. With the rise of more DTC brands like Tesla or Lucid, I think the expectations of US customers are changing quite a bit as well, right? The question is like, why can't Toyota do what Tesla does? Why can't, Chevrolet do what Tesla does?
Do you think people fear losing jobs to AI in the US market?
Right? Your job is threatened, your team's job is threatened because AI is catching up so quickly to be able to do the job that you're currently doing better. Companies like Tesla, right? Or Carvana or Lucid, they're obviously doing something different, and their platforms, their purchase platforms are, I think, at par or very closely approaching what the rest of the world is at in terms of expectations of a retail customer.
Welcome to season 2 of the Season Crew. I really like that, it rhymes. So we're back. If you haven't seen the show before, season 1, we talked a lot about AI in the automotive industry. We covered a lot of different topics, from how you sell it to how you design it to what the product looks like. In season 2, we're changing the format up a little bit. We're asking a couple of hotter questions, and we're really excited for what's to come this season. So if you haven't checked out season 1, check it out. And for the start of season 2, we have David Ham with us here from the US. Hey, David, how are you?
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. We've never met before.
We haven't met before. It's great to be here. I love watching all the previous Season Crew episodes, so super excited to join you on this one,
It's
and
really nice
honored
to
to be first in season 2.
Yeah, very nice to have you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, David, and,
Sure.
and how you got here?
Yeah. So, right now, what I do is I run the U.S. expansion efforts for Seas as a whole. Prior to that, I did a few different things. I started my entire career in advertising at a small agency called Lee Burnett.
Very small.
It's very small, working mainly out of the Dubai office. And then I joined Uber, running their marketing team for Middle East and North Africa out of the Dubai office as well. And then post-COVID, I joined Seas, initially as their CMO, running marketing for the Middle East, but also helping launch the Denmark market, Seas.dk, the auto marketplace. And then a friend of mine reached out from high school. He's like, hey, you want to start a car company? It's like, yeah, that sounds good. That sounds like a really rational thing to do. So we did that for a couple of years. Unfortunately, that part of the career didn't work out too well. Our funding dried up, and just kind of I think overall landscape changed when it comes to auto manufacturing outside of the big players at the moment. And I happened to be in the US at the time, and I knew Seas had ambitions to launch into the US and expand into that market there. So right team, right place, right opportunity. So
100%. I think for those who don't know, both me and Ham are car guys, so I totally get the aspiration to want to start your own car company. So you have a lot of experience, I think, in a lot of different markets. You started here in Dubai.
Yeah.
Now you're based in the US. You have a lot of experience there as well. You've seen how dealerships operate here.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen how they operate in the US. Who do you think is currently more innovative and open in terms of willingness to experiment with like new technologies and the latest trends?
I think that's a very complicated question. First of all, I think landscape of dealers in the US is very different from the landscape of dealers, for example, here in Dubai or even in Denmark. Number one, the scale is completely different, right? Working in a market like the US, the risks as well as the opportunity cost is much higher than if you would be here in Dubai or even Abu Dhabi. So for a dealership or a dealer group to innovate and do things that are a little bit more risky or something that hasn't been tested in a market like the US, I think is a lot more daunting. Here in the US, here in Dubai, for example, or in Europe, where the importer is the dealer, and they have a much closer relationship with the manufacturer and a lot more control over what happens in the market. I think the ability to control what happens from end to end as an experience, whether it's new innovative tech products or processes, I think is a lot more manageable versus in a market like the U.S. So, where is riper for innovation? Probably smaller markets. But if a dealer group or a dealer in the U.S. innovates and does it well, the payoff is going to be much, much bigger.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think, like, to your point, the U.S. is fragmented, right? So there's regional, there's on the state level, and then there's, like, even on a city level, you see multiple dealerships and multiple franchisees, etc. So, yeah, one innovating you won't feel the impact as much as if, like, here, a dealership was to innovate. It's basically the entire country that's going
and
to
here
feel
and
that
again, other markets that are smaller, it's generally one size fits all. It's a homogenous society. One regulatory body. You don't have 50 different states with local municipalities that have their own regulations,
state laws,
franchise laws, as well as consumer protection laws that are completely different from state to state and locality to locality. So as a tech company like ours trying to launch into the US, I think it's very challenging to really understand all the nuances of every market, of every dealer, of every group, of every brand. The complexities are just,
there's definitely going to be
not even comparable.
Yeah, there's a learning curve for sure. I think across our different products. So what's one outdated assumption US dealers still make about the car buying journey, in your opinion?
Without trying to piss off too many American dealers, I think the assumption that a lot of US dealers have is how important the role of the dealership is in the decision-making process of a car buyer, and how important the friendliness and the dealer being the conduit for trust is, I think, a little bit outdated. Consumers nowadays, at least auto consumers, know a lot more, have access to a lot more information. What was previously the strength of the dealer, right? Having that, the only people in the value chain that has access to exactly what the price is going to be, or what the terms of financing are going to be, or what the overall fee and cost of car ownership is going to be, used to be 100% the responsibility of the dealer, and they were the only ones that actually had that information. Nowadays, I think that's very, very different, right? A lot of dealers offer what their prices are online, are a lot more transparent about what products are offered, and with hidden fees and taxes and licenses and things like that. But I think the legacy idea of the dealer knows best may be a little bit outdated, and for sure will be outdated as we go forward.
I mean, we did see some, for example, during the pandemic, during COVID, we saw some trends in terms of like the digital buying journey being a lot more prevalent, and then the rise of Carvana, for example, during that time period, right? So I think there is an openness to it, but when the factors require you to do it, rather than maybe the purchase of a vehicle, you do want to see it in person sometimes.
No, for sure. I don't think it's about being able to see the car in person or seeing the product that you're buying.
Even because some of them bring the car out to you, right?
Yeah.
It's
so absolutely, at a purchase that size, of that impact in terms of your home finances, it's absolutely essential for most to be able to see the car that you're buying. I think it's everything outside of physically seeing the car and inspecting the car that really feels like it's a lot of manufactured complexity. Keeping the industry complex, keeping the financing and the insurance part of it complex enough for customers to, kind of throw up their hands and say, okay, I'm gonna rely on the dealer, and coming in and then having that discussion with the salesperson to really understand what's going on, versus, in markets like Europe or even in Asia, where the overall process isn't as complicated. It's a lot more transparent. It's a lot more.
So is that something that you think the rest of the world is doing better than the US in terms of that experience?
Potentially.
Because that was going to be my next question.
Yeah,
what do you think the rest of the world is doing better than US dealerships?
I think it's different from market to market. I think Asian car dealerships are really good at playing the role in society and the purchase journey as an essential part of the purchase and after purchase journey.
I think it's a ritual to some people. Like,
It is.
Not like personally as a car guy, I'd like to go to the showroom. It's like I like that experience. I like to do the car shopping experience where I go from showroom to showroom, and maybe that's a testament to how well the showrooms are these days, or the experience that is improving there. Or maybe I just like to see new cars and new models.
I think the idea of a showroom is critical.
Yeah.
Right. It's a place to browse, is to touch the product. But when you're in the purchase journey, is it really necessary for you to sit there for 4 or 5 hours, right, as you go through all these very complex financing options? Or is there really a need for you to sit there and negotiate a price and say, can you take $500 off this versus, it's probably one of the only industries left where you're negotiating at that level for a new product that has an MSRP, right, that has a price set. And I think other markets are much better at knowing what you're going to be paying and knowing how much time you're going to be spending in that purchase journey than in the US.
Okay. What are some key automotive trends you do see in the US market?
Trends in retail, or
I think retail, technology. Are there any big trends that you see currently panning out over the last 2 to 3 years and that are continuing to grow?
Yeah. I think with the rise of more DTC brands like Tesla or Lucid, I think the expectations of US customers are changing quite a bit as well, right? The question is like, why can't Toyota do what Tesla does? Why can't Chevrolet do what Tesla does? And a lot of it has to do with legacy, how these OEM dealership relationships were set up from the beginning. Franchise laws, again, we talked about earlier.
You're touching on some hot topics that I think we're going to come to in a bit.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the expectations of consumers are changing fairly rapidly. They're still relatively tolerant in the auto space, but I don't think that's going to be for long, right? There are many industries out there that have caught up with what the expectations of consumers are. Even more outdated industries, traditionally outdated industries like banking, right, where a banker played a key role in your relationship with your money and with your investments. Now is like, when was the last time you met a banker, right? A lot of it is just completely online on your app. You have AI that helps with investments and things like that. So the role of the banker starts to become almost secondary in a support role, versus in a car buying environment, the salesperson is still your point, right? You still rely on them for the source of truth, right? And the gate that you have to go through in order to end up with a car.
So I think you're touching on a couple of very interesting things. What about the impact of AI, right? Is that a trend that is rising in the US? And in what areas?
Yeah, I think so as a whole, right? There's a lot of talk of AI, and we are in the AI business, but it's still so nascent, right? It's still so early in the journey that we really don't know the full impact of what AI will have, not just in the auto industry, but in the world as a whole. For sure. From the shopping journey of doing a lot of the research online, using AI, right? Using AI to compare prices of cars or things like trade-in valuations and things like that, you rely less and less on a single source of truth, right? Which used to be the case, one brand that you go to, and then they are the source of truth for that used car price, versus now you have the ability to go out to basically the entire world, right? The entire world, to find that information, and at the click of a button, or you can talk to it and it'll tell you exactly what it is that you want to do without having to go through that research process manually. So for sure, I think the fact and the knowledge that people have is completely different than what it used to be, and that's going to only accelerate.
And do you think people fear losing jobs to AI in the US market?
Yeah, I think it is talked about a lot more in the US market. And also the fact that the US market is, at least the US employment sector, is a lot more service and soft skills driven than it is in some of the other markets where manufacturing 100%. And, where tradescraft are a lot more encouraged, right? For people who are graduating high school. Here, it's like in the US, it's more, hey, you go to university, pick up a soft skill, and then that's what success is, right? Versus becoming a plumber or electrician or car mechanic, right? Which are sectors obviously that are less impacted by AI. I don't know. I'm not predicting the future, but it feels like those more hands-on type of roles are going to be replaced by AI a little bit later.
Okay.
Right? Compared to where the US is.
us being in the AI industry, do you feel the fear is overstated? Where are we right now versus
It
how
depends
scared
on
are
who you
people?
are and what you're doing.
Okay.
Right. If the role that you're playing is, for example, you're running a call center in a dealership, then yes, right, your job is threatened, your team's job is threatened, because AI is catching up so quickly to be able to do the job that you're currently doing better. Right. It's not limited by how many people you have. It's not limited by what kind of knowledge they can retain. It's not limited by working hours or working days. Imagine a call center representative that has all the access to all the information that exists, right? That is relevant to answering that question or, handling that query. That's much more powerful, right, than any human can ever be. So absolutely, it depends on what you're currently doing, what your industry.
It does depend on what you're doing.
Yeah.
I do feel there is personally, I feel it is slightly overstated because at the end of the day, it's a tool, and a tool can't really take responsibility. You still need humans to take responsibility, right? You need humans to be driving things, and AI is currently just a very powerful tool. But in like specific cases, like you're mentioning, that tool does most of what a human would be doing, right? So
Yeah.
So it does threaten jobs, but at the end of the day, there needs to be someone there who's taking the responsibility, driving it forward, making sure it's not making mistakes, etc.
For now.
Yeah.
For now.
Yeah.
Like I said, like we're so nascent in this industry, in this whole AI revolution that yes, now
We'll
humans
see.
are playing a role, right?
Yeah.
In driving where it's headed. And obviously a lot of these AI companies are very fixated on the role that humans play and AI safety and all of that. But you don't know. I don't know where things are headed.
I mean, I'm really curious to see where we are 5 years from now.
I think we're going to be in, I don't know, as a techno optimist, I think things are going to get better in terms of efficiencies.
100%.
Right. And I think that's where we'll see the most impact from AI is everything just becomes a lot more efficient.
We talk about AI and how, now we have all this information that's available to us. But if you look at the jump the internet made, I feel like that's even a bigger jump. You know what I mean? Like all that information now being available online, you can do DIY, stuff like that. But that doesn't mean that plumbers and electricians ran out of jobs. You still need experts to come in and solve the problems, right? So definitely think there is going to be more of a jump in efficiency than there is going to be like a decline in jobs, right? So it's just the products and the efforts and that we're putting in when we're augmenting that with AI, the outcome is just going to be stronger.
Yeah, I think when it comes to knowledge, AI and the internet obviously democratized the overall availability of knowledge, but I don't think it's helped much in people and humans with the depth of knowledge. Right. So in the past, right, if you wanted to do something like DIY, you were talking about, you want to build a chair, you would spend hours and hours and hours experimenting, learning, apprenticing, and actually running things hands-on versus watch a YouTube video or print out a pattern and then cut it and then now you're a carpenter, right?
Yeah.
So I think the depth of knowledge is definitely not helped by this democratization of information, but
We're becoming shallow. We're
shallow, but also like you could do a lot more.
Yeah.
Right. So jack of all trades versus a specialist.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what's better, what's worse, but that's I think what is the result of.
You still need the masters, not the degree, just the masters as in a master of trade or craft. So if you were to buy or run your own dealership today, what AI tools would you think or you are the lowest hanging fruit that you'd want to implement? And then what are some maybe that you would try to set yourself up for?
Yeah, I think there are AI tools that work extremely well now, and there are AI tools that promise to work extremely well in the relatively near future. So like I mentioned, call centers, BDCs, taking in incoming calls or, for example, website chat are things where AI is potentially better, at least at volume. Where AI doesn't do as well is handling more personalized intricacies when it comes to, a specific finance plan for you in your particular situation. Being able to play that consultant role, I think is just still lacking. But as a general knowledge base of, hey, there's all this information out there, how can I make sense of it? Absolutely, I think AI is doing a really great job. So I think as a dealership operator, that's probably one of the first places I would employ AI.
Sorry, just to a thought on what you were saying. Do you think as we continue to like just improve how we're prompting AI? Like, I think even everyone in general skills are going to become a little bit better in terms of understanding that they're working with an AI prompting. Do you think that would close the gap, or do you think it's all more on the technology side? So is it like we're going to get better at asking for what we want, or is AI going to get better at understanding us?
Yeah, I think it's both. I think humans understanding AI a little bit better and what it's good for, what it's not good for. I think we're still trying to throw everything at the wall and seeing what sticks. But we're going to realize very quickly what AI does really well and how we can leverage that versus things we're just going to have to give up. There are some AI tools out there that are trying to replicate what a human does in the creative aspect of things, and it's that's where I think we see a lot more failures or lack of meeting the standards versus, more of the, there's all this knowledge, help me make sense of it. Yeah.
Interesting. And where do you think the end game is? Like, do you think AI is going to be automating a lot of things? Where does
end game? I think the end result is Cybernet. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know, man. Like it's so. I think it'd be irresponsible of me to predict the future because it's moving so fast, right? I don't know what's going to happen next week. Having said that, I think for sure efficiency is going to be one of the largest and easiest gains of AI in the auto industry.
But how easy is that, or how hard is that to measure?
Efficiency?
Yeah. In some cases, easier than others, maybe.
Yeah. I think the industry is going to start with places where efficiency is more easily measured, right? Output of a single human right now is the output of that one person's ability, time, and skill set. With AI, it's no longer that one person's skill set and time. It's that one person can be a lot more efficient in, for example, handling a call center or putting information together or understanding which cars to buy or which cars to not buy, right? All that person is going to be so much more empowered to be able to make these decisions and become a lot more efficient in their capabilities, that I think that is very easy to measure, right? A single person's effectiveness and contribution to a broader organization, I think is relatively easy to measure. We mentioned call centers and chatbots on websites. These are relatively easy to measure as well, right? So previously, when somebody called into your center, how many were you able to handle before? How many can you handle now, right? Now it's unlimited. You can have 15,000 people call you at the same time, and they'll all get the same customized service.
And it feels more natural, even how the responses are coming through and stuff like that.
Yeah. The only way to scale that before was to just add more people.
Yeah.
Right. And that is absolutely not efficient. So I think that's where we're going to see the most gains. Also, for example, a used car procurement manager used to have to go out and look at all the auctions and compare prices and go look at the market data. And now you can have AI just do that. Right? It'll tell you go out and buy more of this car. Right? It's moving really fast. So and this is how you source it. This is where you source it.
So how do you prep yourself? I think you have to make the data readily available, easy to understand, so that it can be processed.
Yeah.
It's not just how do you make sure the AI gives a better output if you don't have the data to support it.
That's an excellent point, right? Because still a lot of the data that exists in the auto market is fragmented, rudimentary, not in the right formats. So I don't think the AI might catch up, but how the legacy data sits in the industry now is probably not conducive or helpful in accelerating that development.
Exciting times.
For sure.
Yeah. We'll see where we are. We should do another episode in a couple of years and see and reflect on what we talked about today and where we actually got to. So I think we're going to move on to one of our new segments for season 2, Hot Takes. So we're back. Magic buttons have appeared, and despite I think being in one of the hottest countries in the world, Ham has decided that he wants to put on a sweater. So magic sweater. What's gonna happen is Priyanka's gonna ask us a couple of questions, and then we're gonna see who is going to answer them by who buzzes first.
Cool.
I'm gonna keep my hand on the buzzer just so.
No.
So if I want to go, I can go first. Okay, go ahead, Priyanka.
Cool. Are you all ready?
We're ready.
Perfect. Could Trump's tariffs shake up the auto industry in ways we haven't seen before? What are your thoughts?
So I get a very violent sound.
Even though it's a U.S. market question, so I feel like you might be better geared towards answering it. But I definitely think it's making an impact, right? So there's costs of goods going up. What he's trying to do there's an objective behind it. He's trying to drive more local production. He's trying to drive, but I think it's having a couple of maybe impacts that were not expected, or maybe just weren't known in terms of like where goods are being sourced in a lot of industries and a lot of like certain cases. I think it might be hurting smaller businesses who source from outside of the US and are still growing, but a lot of the IP is being generated in the US. I think the US as a market is very strong at creating the ideas and designing, but some of that production is happening outside of the US. And maybe stopping that is not the best decision for the economy. But I'm not based there, so
yeah,
what do you think?
That's an interesting take. Like I was saying before, the idea of the U.S. being a very soft skills dependent country, I think, is absolute truth. And one of the risks of having a soft skills based economy is AI. Right? We talked about AI being probably a lot more proficient in replacing some of those skill sets. Which also means it's probably more capable of replacing some of those processes versus like hard skills or actual manufacturing and being able to build a car completely in a country. I don't think is a skill or a capability that should be taken lightly, right? Because with that comes all of the other capabilities outside of just auto, right? Whether it's weapons manufacturing or shipbuilding or things like that. Without that fundamental manufacturing base, it's very difficult for that country to be self-sufficient. Now, if we're looking at the world...
Oh, yeah. So fun fact, y'all get cut out in like 60 seconds. So you get only 60 seconds to like make your case.
Okay.
So,
right.
Jad, do you agree, disagree with...
No, I definitely agree. I think there's some soft skills in the impact of AI. We'll see what that is. But yeah, there is, I think, as well... some inherent skills in the U.S. market, the manufacturing, etc. But I was curious to hear what he was going to say about tariffs. But okay, we got cut off. But yeah, how the tariffs impact. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously, the immediate impact of tariffs is the cost of goods.
Yeah.
Right. So up until this point, a lot of manufacturers have absorbed some of that cost, so it doesn't reflect at the end of the for a retail customer yet. But there's only so much that an OEM can absorb, right? It's still a relatively low margin industry. So I think we're yet to see the real impact of the tariffs, both from how it's going to change manufacturing in the US standpoint, but also from a retail customer standpoint. So yes, we're starting to see impacts, but I don't think we've seen the full impact of it yet.
I think you need to start to understand essentially what's happening financially. Like, are you bringing that manufacturing in? Is it going to stay out? And then are you going to switch what you're manufacturing inside the country? So like the dust needs to settle, and then we'll know the impacts.
Yeah. I think there's also the protectionist aspect of U.S. manufacturers as well. How has that worked so far in the U.S., right? Versus trying to foster competition from international competitors, and what makes the U.S. better as a whole, I think is a question that still remains to be answered.
If anything, there has been now, I think, at least a small fear instilled in having to rely on external countries if you're an American business. So, yeah, we'll see how that pans out. I think long term.
We'll see.
Okay. Second question. Do you think the auto industry is keeping pace with how fast technology is evolving in other sectors?
Oh, beat me to it that time. And I even was like...
Unfortunately, I don't think the auto industry is keeping pace with where the rest of the world is headed in terms of tech. A lot of that has to do with the complexities of the market and the process now, right? There's a lot of regulations. Like I said, 50 states, all localities, municipalities, all have completely different regulations that make it very difficult to have a tech company create a product that works across the board, right? It's not like Uber where you can have one product and just kind of roll it out everywhere. Here, you have to be very cognizant of market by market and industry by industry and brand by brand. So I think that's what drives a lot of the stagnation in innovation. But no, I don't think we're anywhere near where we could be.
think it's not specific to the U.S. market. So if I had to, yeah, I agree. I don't think it's specific to the U.S. market even. I think the auto industry as a whole tends to move a little bit slower. There's a lot of data in their systems. It's not like other industries where you're just selling a t-shirt. It's on a quick buy, you know. And then there's the whole after service, like the service part afterwards as well that you need to keep track of. There's parts, like all of these things. They don't. There's no parts in a t-shirt, you know. You don't need that, right? Maybe in some electronics, but it's a lot simpler than a vehicle that has so many moving parts. So, yeah, I think the systems need to evolve a little bit, and that's what holds them back in terms of like how we talked about earlier, their data being siloed in a lot of different places.
I guess the counter to that is companies like Tesla, right? Or Carvana or Lucid. I mean, they're obviously doing something different, and their platforms, their purchase platforms are, I think, at par or very closely approaching what the rest of the world is at in terms of expectations of a retail customer. So I don't think it's impossible. I think it might also be just the sheer scale of the industry and the legacy of the industry that might be what's holding them back. So all of these companies that are able to innovate relatively quickly and catch up with some of the, tools that are used in, outside of the industry are the ones that are new, right? That don't have that legacy baggage. So, that might be the cause of that.
I saw that, but I do actually want to ask just a quick follow-up question that I think we've always discussed. It's the auto industry's at the end of the day. There's like maybe 100 or 150 brands, and then
there are that many.
Are they? Yeah, well, if you see the rise of the number of brands, at least in this market,
I think just in China. Right?
Yeah, exactly. There's is it being like at the end of the day you have to go up to the OEM level, and then the OEM has to take decisions. So then it becomes the decision-making process is not like every dealer can do whatever they want. I think even real estate, like every country has their real estate developers, etc. So, but at the end of the day, with auto, they all have to then report at the very top back to the manufacturers. And I think that slows them down a little bit because they still want to hold that experience across.
Yeah.
And like there's so many different factors.
Yeah, that's why manufacturers that are going direct to consumer have a lot more flexibility, right? They can control that journey from end to end. And the responsibility is on them. The onus is on them.
Yeah.
Right. There's no, he did it. They did something wrong, or it's the dealership's not operating the way that we want them to. It's 100% on them. So I think they have a lot more control over the types of tools that they can employ or the innovation that they can bring into the whole retail experience. I think the stagnation happens when, like you said, there's a lot more that you have to take into consideration, right?
Yeah,
outside of just the manufacturer dealing directly with the consumer.
With direct-to-consumer models gaining traction, is the traditional dealership franchise model still relevant in today's automotive landscape?
Ooh. I think that's a you question. I don't even want to press the buzzer. You've been talking about this quite a bit so far.
Yes. I think the short answer is yes. There's still room for the franchise model the way that it is in the US. Again, just because of how big and complex the market is at the moment. Right? I don't know what that's going to look like in 10 years, but the way that things are now, I think it's near impossible for a manufacturer to come out and have the scale that it would need in order to run a successful business. Everything from keeping inventory to delivery to servicing to returns to F&I products. Right? I think it's very, very difficult for a legacy OEM to go out and replace the dealership network. Now, again, with newer manufacturers, it's a lot easier. They don't have the dealership network to deal with, so they have to figure stuff out from the get-go. But even even new manufacturers like Grenadier, right? They're not relying on a direct-to-consumer approach, but they're approaching existing dealerships to be able to provide that infrastructure. So I think there is absolutely a place for that structure, at least in the U.S. In 10 years, when things change, when regulations change, when, hopefully, then maybe, I don't know. But as of now, I think it's very difficult to replace what they have now.
It's my turn too. Okay. So I'm going to be a little bit controversial. I disagree.
Okay.
I disagree, but with parentheses.
Sure.
I think if they continue the way they're operating now, then it's going to be very difficult for these franchisee dealers to keep growing. And I think they need to adapt to what's happening right now in the market, understand that, and then allow, I think, franchise dealers, and they need to understand like what the landscape is looking like, what those rules are looking like. They need to adapt to the market, grow, give them more flexibility, give them more support. So I do think there's a lot of power in the geographical distribution of the franchisee, and they have relationships with customers for years and stuff like that. So they can have such a large impact. And that's why some of these brands are going for the franchise model, because those dealers already have those networks and they already know the products really well, and they know the car industry really well, especially in certain geographic locations, right? They're specific to their areas and they know what the people around them need and wants and stuff like that. But if the OEMs in those markets don't evolve and allow them the tools, then I think the dealers are gonna find it very hard to compete with some of the direct consumer models.
Yeah, I don't think the dealers are staying still, right? That's the reason companies like us have a role. Right?
Yeah.
I think all of these dealerships are starting to understand the limitations of the data that they have, right? So they're starting to clean up all that data, unifying from a DMS to an ERP to a CRM, just trying to bring all that data together and have control over what's going on, I think is one of the very hot topics that dealers are talking about at the moment. So I think the entire industry is gearing towards a much more efficient way of running the car business. So no, I don't think they're standing still. And I don't know what the franchise model looks like in 10 years, but for the time being, I don't think anyone's really staying still and hoping that things never change. I think the writing on the wall is very clear, and a lot of dealerships are taking steps to make sure that they're future-proof as well. There's a podcast I really love, and it always ends with this question of luck or skill, and I think that's a really relevant question no matter who you are. So I'd love to understand from the next guest how they got to where they got to. How much of it do they attribute to luck, and how much do they attribute it to skill?
So I think that brings us to the end. Thank you so much for being with us.
This was fun.
Yeah, on episode 1 of season 2 of the Season Crew.
Nice.
Yeah,
can't wait to be back.
Yeah. We'll see in 3 years, right? We'll come back. We'll reflect. we'll see where we are. But yeah, please, if you enjoyed the episode, please like, subscribe, follow us on the different platforms. We're always looking for your input, your comments, your questions that we can always take up in future episodes. So please drop us a like and a follow, and we'll see you for the next episode sometime soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.